yes, I do remember, as if it were yesterday. The memory is still vivid, and my heart beats a bit faster just at the thought of our surprise, our joy, and our excitement. We had been in the Kerguelen Islands for more than 10 months, alone, far from everything.
I can imagine how difficult conditions were.
In October 1908, we had arrived on the JB Charcot, a 48-ton ketch. We were there to map out the Kerguelen archipelago. We quickly used up all of our resources, but by hunting sea elephants, we could produce oil in order to pay the crew and to go back home. That oil was so valuable. It could be used for industry and lighting and others.
Back in the good old days.
We were walking in silence, looking straight ahead, when suddenly we were overwhelmed by emotion, unable to speak. We had just caught sight of a plume of smoke.
Plume of smoke?
Oh, it was just a very thin smoke signal, but for us, who had been trapped on a remote island for 10 long months, wandering in a world of solitude, this smoke brought us a message of warmth and happiness.
Meaning new faces, new voices, new friends, and also news from the outside world.
Yes, it came from a ship, the Jeanne d'Arc, led by Captain Ring, who was Norwegian as well as his crew. Around 100 men had come to set up a quite big factory for the melting of whale blubber. Their first question to us was, "Are there many whales around here? We haven't even seen one." They couldn't wait to find a good site on which to build their factory. "Many, many," we replied. "Do you have any tobacco on board?" Plus they even had a gramophone. That's how we got to hear the latest opera tunes. In a flash, the wardroom of the Jeanne d'Arc became a Parisian salon.
And what about the location?
Oh yes, it was excellent. The beach was nice and there was even a stream with fresh water,
But what?
I was afraid they wouldn't find any whales. There were so many of them, but elsewhere.
Is that when they called their base the Port-Jeanne?
Yeah, the name referred to the supply ship. Its French name was a tribute to France, like the other harpooning boats, l'Étoile, l'Éclair, l'Espoir.
France, by authorizing whale and seal hunting, strengthened its claim of the Austral Islands. It was the Bossier brothers, ship owners from Le Havre, who had obtained a license from the government in 1893 to exploit resources on the Kerguelen Islands for 50 years. Then, to the Norwegians of Storm, Bull and Company, they sold the right to hunt whales in the territorial waters of the archipelago and sea elephants on the coasts, but just on one half of these.
Well, you know, between you and me, we used to just call it the station.
What about the building of the station?
They had come with pretty good materials, sheds, machines in parts ready to be assembled, and together with the normal crew, there was a group of specialized craftsmen, including carpenters and blacksmiths. They quickly built a range of white wooden buildings that looked just wonderful.
It's true that, seeing the elements of the two large tanks near the boilers, we can notice marks that must have helped for the assembling.
Yes, Mr. Ellefson, the factory director, was an efficient and generous man. He didn't know what to do to be nice to us. He could be so lavish. In the beginning, there were 129, for the most Norwegians, but also 11 Scandinavians and 23 African Zulus who were from Durban, South Africa.
That means many people to accommodate. Lodgings in the back, as well as the director's house.
Which was also used as a sick room. Later, these buildings were repainted in Norwegian style, brick red.
Yes, this paint was still there at the end of the 20th century and was used when the wooden buildings were rebuilt. But were they any other structures?
Yes, a huge butcher's table, a blubber kitchen, and a guano factory with a warehouse, a forge, a mechanical workshop, and a carpentry too. There was a boiler room close to the kitchens, 2 reserves, and a cooperage. In every house for the workers, there was a small kitchen with an adjacent dining room. In the manager's villa, in addition to the offices and housing, there was a small bakery. And further away, there was a pigsty and a sheep pen, and far away from the buildings, a powder stock. By mid-October 1909, barely a year after our first encounter, the port of Jeanne d'Arc was fully operational, over 6 hectares.
So there were many different jobs and activities.
Yes, within a great hierarchy. The manager coordinated 4 divisions: fishing, transport, accessories, and productions. At the head of each division, there was an experienced assistant. In theory, the manager decided the strategy with these assistants, but, in reality, as long as the whales were caught and the seals killed, there were no problems.
Then came the supervisors?
And at the very bottom of the hierarchy were the African workers, who only had to execute tasks. And also 2 other employees, miners, who were 16, 17 years old. Of course, the monthly wages were linked to the rank in hierarchy and could vary from 25, 30 crowns up to 400 for the manager. Despite everything, with bonuses, the whalers were actually better paid than the majority of the Norwegian workers.
And what about your skepticism about whale hunting?
Well, confirmed. Around the Kerguelen Islands, you cannot find the whales which float when dead. You do find humpback whales, fin whales, and blue whales. So when the whale was killed, we had to inflate its body with an air compressor so that it floated, and then we would tow it. The first year, 223 whales were killed. In a bay, once, I had indeed seen so many whales that the sea was black of them and the air full of sprayed water from their breathing. But these animals are intelligent. They know when they are tracked, so they try to escape the whalers. During that first year, more whales were killed than in the following 3 years.
So the location of the station wasn't the right one?
It was too far from the hunting zone. They had to trail the animal back. What a waste of time and energy. They thought the conditions would be similar to those in South Georgia, but there were less whales and their migration was more variable. When they admitted their mistake, the company had already accumulated losses. As for me, I left the station on June 3rd, 1909, so I don't really know what happened then after.
In fact, all these problems led the company to compensate the lack of whales by the hunt of sea elephants and the opening of a new hunting site in South Africa. But the obstacles just kept coming: epidemics, rebellions. At the beginning of 1914, the activity had not generated the expected profits, and the accumulated losses forced them to modify the fleet and later sell it. Soon after that, the First World War put an end to all hopes of resumption, and once the war finished, the development of factory ships made this port of Jeanne d'Arc station obsolete, when 10 years earlier it had actually been the most modern of its time. The site was abandoned, and in 1931, the Antares Aviso placed a milestone to mark the archipelago's unification with France, which was only set up for good in 1950. A matter of sovereignty, the sub-Antarctic islands are from now on scientific lands and natural reserves. Gone are the hunting days. The port of Jeanne d'Arc remains an evidence of this history and needs to stay in the memory of mankind so that mistakes aren't repeated. For that reason, since 1993, The heritage mission of the FAAT, French, Austral and Antarctic Territories, strives to preserve its remains. Some have been saved, while others, threatened by irreversible corrosion, have been logged in thanks to 3D. You see?
Oh, yeah, I do see. But will your digital and virtual station last for 100 years?
I don't know, but at least we'll have the stamp that was published during our FAAT mission.
So,